Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Please stand for the playing of the national anthem. Good evening again, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ed Bushell. Thanks, Charlie. And it is my distinct honor and pleasure to be the facilitator for this evening's function. I see my role as one of facilitation. That is to get the program moving, so people more interested than myself will have the opportunity to present themselves to you. Now, this is a very important occasion for us this evening. As you know, the Blue Ribbon Dinner has now become a very, very important part of our Combermere week, the time where we gather to pay special honor to those Combermeres who have made a mark for themselves and for Combermere, both locally and internationally. This evening is no different. I invite you to sit back, relax, and enjoy this evening's proceedings. Bit of housekeeping. You will notice on your tables a bottle of red wine, I think it is, and a bottle of not so red wine. You're invited at your leisure, if you so care, to uncork the bottles that are not corked and share among your table. You're free to do that at your leisure and pleasure. Now, this evening's ceremony, we start with official welcome from Mr. Junior Jordan, the president of the CSOSA, the Combermere School of Scholars Association. Junior Jordan.
Mr. Master of Ceremonies, honorees, other members of the stage party, principals past, current principal, deputy, ladies and gentlemen, invited guests, good evening. I'm indeed honored to be able to say a few words of welcome at this Blue Ribbon Class Testimonial Dinner. This dinner this evening has provided the Combermere School Old Scholars Association with yet another great opportunity to honor 3 outstanding, distinguished Combermerians who in their various capacities have impacted most significantly not only on the Barbadian landscape, but regionally and internationally. These 3 distinguished Combermerians, like all other Blue Ribbon class inductees before them, have exemplified and certainly lived up to the school's motto, Religione Humanitate Industria, and for that, this evening, we honor them. Resident historian Mr. Basil Lavine, through available records to him, suggests honoring old scholars with dinners date back to 1919, and in 2012, this fine tradition continues. It is significant that this celebration falls during the month of independence, which is November 30th, and therefore, these 3 illustrious sons of Barbados and the Combermere must be revered as national treasures. An old adage says, and I quote, "Whatever you see here, whatever you hear here, let it stay here." But this evening, I say the exact opposite. Whatever you see here, whatever you hear here, don't let it stay here. Go to the mountain top and shout, for the universe needs to know that Messrs. Tappin, Norris, and Norris, though with different career paths, have kept and will continue to keep the flame burning brightly ever. Looking around this beautifully decorated room at the Hilton Barbados Resort, your presence in fine regalia is true testimony to our love for all things Combermerian. And as a theme for this year, United in Purpose and Mission, this was fully embraced during the past week, last night notwithstanding. This warm welcome is extended on behalf of the Combermere School Association to inductees, their families, the principal, Mr. Vere Parris, and I don't think Mrs. Parris is here, or is she? No, she's not here. The chairperson of the Board of Management, to all teachers and staff, past and present, Combermerians all, friends, on this celebratory occasion, up and on, I bid you welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I now call on Senator the Dean Crichlow to say grace before meals. Now, it's a tradition at this dinner that grace before meals is said in Latin. It has occurred to us that sometime in the past that some people may not exactly follow the entire translation. So to facilitate that, if you turn to page 19 of your program, you'll see the translation in standard English. Dean Crichlow.
He stands to grace. Benedict Domine nobis et donis tuis, quae ex largitatis tua sumus maturi, per Iesum Christum Dominum nostrum. Amen.
Please be seated. Thanks very much. Ladies and gentlemen, dinner will now be served. As protocol dictates, the head table will proceed dinner first, and then the staff, the maitre d', will direct the tables to dinner. Enjoy. Thank you. have not gone in excess with your dessert. We've now come to what I consider to be the highlight of this evening's ceremony, and I'm going to ask Senator Dean Harold Crichlow to say grace after me.
Thank you, Mr. Master. Please bow your heads. Oremus. Agnus tibi gratias omnipotent Deus, pro his et omnibus benefici historis, mensae celestis nos participes facias, rex aeternae gloria. Amen.
Hope you had the translations out. Ladies and gentlemen, well, we had dinner, we had our distinguished awardees on the screen, and they listened very carefully to what they were saying. And a lot of what they were saying reflected the pride that they have in Combermere School. Last night, those of you who have survived last night will have heard the same thing to a great extent. How proud we are, how fiercely we defend our membership in this august institution. There's one thing that comes to mind that reinforces this to me. As you know, I had the honor, distinct honor and pleasure to be serving in diplomatic service in Barbados, for Barbados. And as Consul General, you're referred to as CG. Among my contemporaries who happened to be serving at the same time had a higher calling. He was a High Commissioner. And during his first few days in the High Commission in London, as he was walking down the corridors, he was approached by a member of staff who said, HC? He says, no, you had to come here. There's one person in this room who could vote for that. So it's these things that confirm, in my mind, how proud we are, how fiercely we defend our membership, as I said. We're going to move on to the presentation and toast. And as you know, those of you who have come to this ceremony over the years, that these speeches are long. And the speakers tonight, they all asked me how much time they had. And I told them that they could take as long as they like, as long as it did not exceed 10 minutes. So we're going to move on to this most important aspect, but before I do, I want to raise a toast to the University of Waterford. Please be upstanding. The Combermere. Somebody said Combermere. Hip hip. Hooray. Hip hip. Hooray. I have at this time to make an apology for the chairman of the school who was not being able to be with us. Her name appears on the program, but she's ably represented by Mr. Roderick Sobers, who is president of the PTA and a member of the school board. And he will reply to the toast. Roderick. Please.
Mr. Master Ceremony, distinguished honorees, other members of the head table, fellow Combermereans, ladies and gentlemen. The Master Ceremonies has already made apologies for the chairman, but I believe that I will be a good enough emissary on her behalf. And so I wish to bring you warm greetings from from the chairman and the members of the Board of Management of Combermere School this evening. Of course, Madam Chairperson would have wished me to extend warmest congratulations to our honorees, and she hopes that you continue to do not only Combermere, but that is very proud of you. And to you, ladies and gentlemen, fellow Combermereans, we can only but continue the good work that we would have done over the past several years and continue to work within the school, the old scholars, the PTA, and the other organs, continue in that spirit of unity, and in that we grow in strength. So once again, on behalf of the Board of Management, we wish to congratulate our honorees tonight, and I thank you on my own behalf.
Ladies and gentlemen, first honoree this evening is Mr. Anton Norris, and the citation will be read by Mr. Tony Cave. But before they do that, there's something I want to say. The Norris boys were famous in Combermere for swimming. They swam and carried Combermere forward with great distinction. I think it always was Anton first, Robin second. Anton first, Robin in every single race. Ladies and gentlemen, I stand before you as the only person who was separated the two of them. I got a second place at the Aquatic Club for the backstroke. Anton first, Bushell second. All right. I'm not going to call on Tony Cave the real citation. Tony.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Master of Ceremonies, Mr. Principal, honorees, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I have the honor, ladies and gentlemen, of initiating what, in the words of our brother Combermere, is a public discussion of a private man. The type of man who perhaps inspired the words of an obscure but erudite Swedish theologian, John Lavine, who wrote, "He only is great who, after performing what none in 10,000 could accomplish, passes on like Samson, and tells neither father nor mother of it." I had the unforgettable fortune, ladies and gentlemen, of being on the field at Combermere School one afternoon in March 1958, when a lean sixth former cantered slowly towards the high jump bar, and with his two long legs, he scissored over it. With that jump, Anton Norris leapt into athletic history, taking with him the boys of Vere and perhaps every living member of the Combermere alumni. Anton had scaled the bar at 6 feet, a height to which no schoolboy athlete had jumped before. It was for me a strange mixture of joy, pride, and dismay, because for some reason, ladies and gentlemen, it was the first time in my life, perhaps, that I realized how very short I was. Anton's demeanor on that occasion was as striking and as memorable as was his skill in executing the feat. He did not boast, he did not brag, but displayed throughout the modesty and reserve which are the abiding traits of his character and his personality. He was quiet, ever polite, projecting always a rare and a wholesome youthfulness. As I recall, at school, a flask of milk was his accustomed daily beverage. Erskine Anton Norris, known to his friends as Hank, entered Combermere School in September 1951. His athleticism was first spotted at the Barbados Aquatic Club, where, with his younger brother Robin, he made a memorable splash. It was not long, however, before his larger talent for jumping was also revealed, a talent which he had diligently sharpened in the concrete driveway of his Christchurch home, using a grass-filled bed as his landing pad, a bar and a pair of poles given him by his father. Anton was also a distance runner, but steadily dominated the high jump competition both at Combermere and at the annual inter-school sports, leaving Robin to become an equally dominant force in swimming. In an international career of 8 years, from 1959 to 1967, Anton represented Barbados in the high jump at the West Indies Championships, the Commonwealth Games, the Pan American Games, and the Central American and Caribbean Games, winning 3 silver medals and 4 bronze medals. Anton's highest jump was 6 feet 10 1/4 inches, competing for the Inter-American University of Puerto Rico in 1967. This was a national record which stood for 20 years. Anton Norris was also a cricketer of note, a fast bowler, representing first the Combermere School, First Division, and later Empire Club. His best schoolboy figures were 6 for 36 against Carlton. He also had impressive figures against Lodge. According to stylish opening Combermere batsman Vincent Booners, Anton was regarded as the gentle fast bowler. That is, Boo recalls, until Anton dispatched 2 BCL players to the hospital with a promise to send more. Anton represented Barbados against Guyana in the 1963 Intercolonial Series. Becoming well-rounded, ladies and gentlemen, is the credo of the Combermerean, and Anton Norris faithfully reflects that virtue. He was an outstanding member of the Combermere School Cadet Corps, No. 3 Company, rising rapidly to the rank of cadet under officer. His classmate and fellow cadet officer, retired Lieutenant Colonel Dighton Maynard writes, Hank was his nickname. Hank was also an assiduous worker in the classroom. I recall him spending much time reading Spanish novels and newspapers and selecting West Indies cricket teams. Small wonder that he won a scholarship to Puerto Rico when they were studying. By the time Combermere School moved to Waterford, Hank Norris had become a licensed driver and traveled to school in what Colonel Maynard described as unrecognizable to today's schoolboy as an automobile. Genevieve, as it was affectionately called, must have had great difficulty in getting over the hill in Bridge Road and the one in Station Hill. And nobody in the form ever ask Anton for a lift anywhere. Hank, unruffled as ever, was never worried. In 1959, Anton Norris was appointed head boy at Combermere School, a distinction which speaks for itself. Former cadet under officer Malcolm Squires says that Hank Norris was always well attired, an excellent example, and one to emulate. The study of languages was the academic forte of the Norris brothers at Combermere. Anton excelled in the study of Spanish, and Robin would distinguish himself in the study of French. Anton Norris left Combermere School in 1960 and joined the staff of Bradshaw and Company Limited as a commercial agent, and later moved to the Barbados Mutual Life Assurance Society as a life insurance underwriter. In 1963, he entered the Inter-American University of Puerto Rico, graduating in 1967 with a bachelor's degree, cum laude, in economics and business administration. While at the University of Puerto Rico, Anton was honored with the award of the Jesse Smith Noyes Foundation Scholarship, the award given for Anton's academic excellence. Anton later completed the master's degree in business administration at the New York University Graduate School of Business, with emphasis on management and international business. He also undertook training in industrial investment promotion with the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, UNIDO, in collaboration with the United Nations Institute for Training and Research, UNITA. Ladies and gentlemen, the agency once called the Barbados Industrial Development Corporation, and before that, the Barbados Development Board, is one of the most vital and critical of our national public agencies. Almost alone, it is responsible for much of the advancements made by Barbados during its 4 decades of political independence. It has led the way in changing much of the national face of Barbados. Not long ago, another most eminent, but alas, now departed Combermerian, made the arresting observation that Barbados is not just an economy, but a society. It suggests that each sector must respond to each other and must work for the total benefit of all Barbadians, a perspective which comes easily to Combermerians. It can therefore be suggested, ladies and gentlemen, that the BIDC stands at the very point at which the Barbados economy and Barbadian society converge. It is not insignificant, therefore, that it was here that Anton Norris chose to offer his service and his skills. Anton joined the staff of the BIDC, then the Development Board, in 1967. He was assigned to New York as a BIDC United States representative. In 1971, he was made assistant manager in an expanded New York office. Anton's initial responsibilities involved the promotion of investment in Barbados through advertising, through mail and seminars, as well as interviews. Anton returned to Barbados in 1977 as Deputy Governor General, There may be something in there. Anton returned to Barbados in 1977 as Deputy General Manager with responsibility for coordinating activities of the Investment Promotion Division. He was reassigned to New York in 1980 as Director of the North American Office with responsibility for all activities in the United States and Canada. In 1988, Anton was seconded to the Economic Affairs Secretariat of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States at St. John's, Antigua, where he served as Regional Technical Advisor with the Investment and Export Development Project. In 1992, Anton was designated Director of Industrial Services Division in the restructured and rebranded Barbados Investment and Development Corporation. Anton Norris retired from the BIDC in 2004 after 37 years of comprehensive and dedicated service with the organization. He was instrumental in defining and determining all aspects of his operations, both here in Barbados and abroad. He left content in the knowledge that he had rendered sterling service to Barbados and Combermere School. Erskine Thompson, a Combermerean and himself a retired senior manager of the BIDC, who worked under Anton's supervision, offers this footnote. Anton was cool, approachable, exceptionally efficient. I have never seen him openly mad, but there are those who may have misread his coolness. In closing, ladies and gentlemen, I return to the words of Lieutenant Colonel Leonard. Hank was and remains a true blue Combermerean, outstanding scholar, cadet, and sportsman. This is yet another honor, well-deserved, and adds to that given to him by the National Sports Council, which made a decision some time ago to name one of the zones in the National Primary School's athletic competition in his honor. And also the words of his brother, Robin. From Weymouth to Waterford, he was an older brother whom I could look up to, try to emulate, and occasionally fight with. From my own perspective, ladies and gentlemen, I regard Anton Norris as one of the key models in my own development. His quiet courtesy, his dignified demeanor and deportment bespoke a character which commanded respect and compelled emulation. I can still remember the scenes in his white shirts in his senior years at Combermere School. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been a public discussion of a private matter. May I ask you to stand and raise your glasses to toast as we welcome Erskine Anton Norris to the Blue Ribbon class of the Combermere alumni. Ladies and gentlemen, Erskine Anton Norris.
Kareem, Tyrell, and Sanola Sandiford, head boy and girl of Combermere School, to make the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Master of Ceremonies. I want to thank all of you for your gracious toast this evening. And after hearing so many wonderful things about myself, I just feel I should sit down and have nothing more to say. But I would certainly like to start by recognizing the presence of Mr. Charlie Pilgrim and his wife, Grace. Mrs. Dora Pyle and Colin Pyle. Colin is my classmate in sixth form. These are two more recent principals at Combermere. But when I entered Combermere School in 1951, Major Cecil C. Newt was the principal, the headmaster. And I want to say a few things about my stay at Combermere and give you somewhat of a perspective of my early years at that institution. I entered the school with my brother Robin, 1951. As I said, when Major Newt was the headmaster, and teachers had such colorful nicknames as the Bull, Bing, Bezos, Laddies, Screws, and Furpo. When art was taught by the lovely Miss Escoffery, and boxing by the late Carl Botegan, also a great Barbadian artist and sculptor. At that time, the late Frank Cullimer, a natural literary treasure in his own right, was also on staff. So was the late Jimmy Millington, a musician par excellence, who set the stage for and launched many a violinist or saxophonist in his time. Major Newt was a disciplinarian, and his military daring and willing rod was feared by all and sundry. He ruled with an iron hand, but often had a listening ear. He also spoke French fluently and taught in the sixth form. Ultimately, he came to be revered by every Combermerian of the day. And as you know, the Waterford School Hall bears his name. But, of course, everyone's favorite was Harry Seeley. I suppose you've heard that so many times. The late Harry Seeley was a junior school teacher, sports master, and humanitarian, whose passion was to interact positively with young students, to nurture their development and encourage them to be responsible citizens. Because he was so easy to approach, his wise counsel was sought by many a young lad. Harry was indeed a man for all times. In my early days at Combermere, I was, like most boys of my age, not very much interested in lessons. I considered them a necessary evil at the time. Something your parents had more interest in than you. I lived for each break to get out onto the pasture to play battle ball. I was born in St. Philip, and I suppose as a Dutch boy, I had a yearning for open spaces. When I moved from St. Philip to St. Michael, my open space was the Garrison Savannah. And as you know, that's where the horses run. So I became a cricket fan and a horse racing fan. And living near to the beach, I also became a swimming fan. So it was logical that I would be a sportsman. It was not until I was around 14 or so that I began to set myself any specific sporting goals. My first goal was to make the school's third 11 team as a fast bowler. To this end, I presented myself at the nets and bowled at members of the senior team. Not long after that, I made the junior team and gradually worked my way into the first 11, when most of the senior players had departed, of course. From there, I joined Empire Club and partners with Charlie Griffith in opening the bowling. Noted Combermerians, Roy Branker, Francis Scott, and Leonard Williams, among others, were already doing well at Empire. High jumping was something that came naturally to me. From the time that I was age 7 or 8, jumping was basically a family pastime. For me, my brothers, and yes, my sisters as well. One of them, Jean, is here and can attest to that. At first, I merely jumped to get a standard point for set A, but being competitive, I always wanted to jump on sports day. As I progressed in this sport, I came up against some stalwarts. The biggest obstacle was not the high jump bar, but Charles Ford, whom I found difficult to beat. It was not until he left that I began to excel. On the day that I first cleared 6 feet, it was as if his weight had suddenly been removed from my shoulders. I would have been unbeatable on that day. The beautiful thing about sports is that it's easy to set realistic goals because it is so easy to measure performance. Each time I set a new mark, my objective next time was to exceed it. Of course, international competition helped a great deal. To be the best at anything is a great feeling. Someone once said to me that when I placed third at the Combat Games or the Pan Am Games, there were only 2 countries in the entire Commonwealth or the Americas ahead of Barbados. And that's an interesting way to look at it. Now, if you have come to the conclusion that all I had an interest in at school was playing sports, nothing could be further from the truth. I made it to sixth form, and there prepared for life beyond Combermere. I formed some lasting relationships with colleagues who were to become leaders in influential organizations, business, government, and diplomacy. One of the curious things that struck me when I reflected on my classmates of that day was the pairing of brothers that we had in the sixth form. The Blenman brothers, the Braffets, the Davises, the Lewises, the Pollards, the Youngs, and the Norrises. All of these siblings were in one classroom. To say that I enjoyed my years at Combermere would be an understatement of great magnitude. But only a select number of the many thousands that have passed through the gates can boast that they had the privilege to attend the Trinity that was Combermere in the 1950s. Combermere School at Weymouth, Combermere School at the Garrison, and Combermere School at Waterford. I profoundly appreciate the honor that the Combermere School Old Scholars Association has bestowed on me tonight. My hope is that my record at the school as a scholar, sportsman, head boy and cadet, as well as my public service to Barbados, will inspire Barbadians to treasure the opportunities for excelling in life and making a meaningful contribution to the development of their country. I congratulate the association and its chapters abroad on the good work they are doing to keep the spirit of Combermere aflame as we all strive to make Barbados a better place for generations to come. I thank you.
Thank you, Anton. I now call on Mr. Basil Lavine to read the citation for Dr. Leonard, nurse. Basil.
Thank you, Mr. Master of Ceremonies. Representative of the board, principal of Combermere School, president of the Combermere School Board Scholars Association, guests of honor, other distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, friends, students who I know also include the school captains as young adults, part of the Combermere family. Ecclesiasticus chapter 44 begins with that oft-quoted verse. Let us now praise famous men and our fathers that begat us. I now crave your indulgence to add to that verse the words and the institution that nursed us. This evening, I have the very signal honor of presenting to you for enrollment in the ranks of that celebrated group of Combermereans, one of the nation's most highly recognized and respected sons from the halls of academia, certainly of this generation. That we are able to celebrate in this fashion is not surprising, as the names of illustrious Combermereans are indelibly imprinted on the pages of this nation's history. So has it been all down the last century and before, as this institution had come of age much earlier than many would have cared to admit. At the close of the 19th century, based on a very recorded history, it had within its walls some of those who would, in a few short years, win prestigious military distinctions in the conflict that would soon engulf the whole world. It would also have him who would soon become an internationally acclaimed academic in the study of geography, writing a text on the subject, and who would end up as an housemaster at Harvard School in England, and scores of others coming later in sports, politics and government, the arts, law, agricultural science, education, the church, and the enfranchisement of many from the ranks of the underprivileged. All this against the background of its being the first institution to provide a secondary education for black children in Barbados. This institution, this evening's celebration is, however, special in that, apart from being another testimony of the institution's ability to produce continually persons of the very highest caliber, it salutes an icon whose work by its quality has now placed Barbados among countries with representatives bearing the coveted title Nobel Laureate. Especially from the effects of global warming and mass bleaching of corals, sea level rise and increased coastal erosion, the shifting of the patterns and obsessing the weather, the indicators and indications of the adverse impact of anthropogenic acts, such as greenhouse gas emissions, especially hydrocarbon combustion and other environmental stressors, are everywhere we look, and could affect all our lives and the lives of future generations. His work on climate change and coastal zone management is therefore of more than theoretical interest. Since 1986, Leonard has been involved in the decision and policy-making process of key national and international agencies and institutions. The number of positions he has held and continues to hold is too large to enunciate here. But he can say that he continues to hold several policy-making positions simultaneously from appointments going back several years. To mention just a few, he's a former director, Coastal Zone Management Unit, and permanent secretary, Ministry of the Environment in Barbados, and especially a senior lecturer in the Center for Resource Management and Environmental Studies, CERMES, University of the West Indies at Cave Hill. Dr. Norris is regarded as a leading practitioner in coastal resources management, regionally and internationally, and has undertaken numerous consultancies in this field for regional governments, the private sector, and international organizations, including UNEP, UNDP, IDB, and the World Bank. Leonard has written and published widely on the impact of climate change on small island developing states. He's also served as Vice Chair of the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission for the Caribbean and adjacent regions. And from 2002 to 2004, was a member of the Center and Technical Advisory Panel of the Global Environment Facility of the World Bank. He is currently Chairman of the Barbados National Oil Group of Companies, a Director of Barbados Cane Industry Corporation and Trinidad Cement Limited, and Chairman, Board of Governors of the Caribbean Community Climate Change Center, which is headquartered in Belize. Since 1992, he has been lead author of the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which is awarded a Nobel Prize in 2007 for his work in the science of climate change. Over the course of his career, Leonard's account of the high quality of his work has earned several prestigious awards. In 2007, he received a Certificate of Merit from the Future Center for outstanding work in support of the preservation of natural reefs. And in 2001, he was awarded Barbados Centennial Honor, followed by the Governor General's Award for Environment in the same year. On November 30, 2007, he had conferred upon him Barbados' second highest national honor, the Companion Honor of Barbados. Ladies and gentlemen, applause for your applause. Not to mention, of course, the implicit honor conferred of being a member of the Nobel Prize-winning United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change in 2007, coming before the conferral of the CSB in Barbados. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I believe, and I think you all will share with me this view. There's only one thing left now, but I will not want presumption to say what it is. At the beginning, I did indicate that some praise should also be due to our fathers that begat us. In the words of Sirach, I beg to include the institution that produced us. It cannot be doubted that Leonard's early upbringing was an inspiring key factor in his performance, and therefore, much credit is also due to his parents and forebears. They may hardly have thought that their little son or grandson, born in humble circumstances, would one day be hailed as a leading international authority in a critical area of human existence and development. Leonard is a family man with a very supportive wife, Marcia, and two lovely daughters, Claire and Camille, both actively engaged in building their own careers. The work schedule demands much mobility and travel, intellectual involvement. He definitely needs a wife and family that understands him. Such wives and family are not always easy to find. So cheers to his family. I pause that you may applaud. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I now have the honor of asking you to be upstanding. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I now have the pleasure of asking you to be upstanding and to join us at the head table in welcoming the Honorable Leonard Alfred Norris, CHB, BCH, PhD, etc., 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 to the rights of that illustrious group of Combermereans, which make up the Blue Ribbon class, and that he be presented with the relevant insignia at this, his moment in time.
I'll now ask Kareem and Sanola to present the insignia.
Dr. Honorable Leonard Nurse, Combermere, in recognition of your exceptional achievement, outstanding research, and work in the science of climate change, climate variability, and coastal research management in Barbados, the region, and internationally. We are honored to induct you into the Combermere Global class.
Ladies and gentlemen, now we are going to ask Mr. David McCollin I thought he said he didn't want to speak. Sorry, now I'm going to ask them to come and reply.
Good evening all. Since Ed was not planning to allow me to speak, I think I will oblige by being extremely brief. Mr. Master of Ceremonies, fellow Combermereans, Mr. Principal, peers, family, friends, former principals, and mentors, good evening. I am very pleased to be sharing this occasion with two outstanding honorees, Anton and Arturo. And while I will never be able to jump as high as Anton, or play as beautifully as Arturo, I too embody the Combermere spirit. Anton has made my task exceedingly easy because he covered all of the turf that I had planned to cover, and therefore, since I don't like to be repetitious, I shall not venture there. Let me just say simply that I have received a few honors in my life so far, all of which I have accepted with great humility but exceeding pride. But none is as satisfying or as highly prized as tonight's honor. To receive an honor, any honor, is always a satisfying experience. But when it comes from Combermere School, at the selection of your peers, it is doubly satisfying. It is not the good fortune of everyone to be honored by Barbados' most distinguished institution of higher learning. Of course, I'm speaking of Combermere, in this way. And so, this is an honor which I cherish, which I accept humbly, and which shall live with me forever. Of course, I had pretty much similar experiences as Anton at Combermere School. The camaraderie, the way in which you were never made to feel that you were a second-class citizen. The fact that nobody was interested in who your parents were or where you lived, I think were props that were critical in making us human beings and whole persons. People who saw ourselves as valuable in spite of any other interpretations of who we were by anybody else, anywhere else. And that was important to me. When I look at tonight's catalogue of past honorees, I began to wonder, Ed, how I managed to slip through the net. To be listed among such distinguished persons, some of whom are sitting in this very room. But however it happened is not of much import tonight. The important thing is that, like everybody else, I'm here to celebrate the glory of Combermere School. Like Anton, there were a number of anecdotes that I can recall, but I just want to recall one. My principal at the time, Stanton Gittins, I remember when our Oxford and Cambridge O-level results came back, there was this habit of going into the school hall, and Stanton would say, will all of those who took GCE O-levels this year please remain after assembly? And of course we all stayed back. And I remember Stanton went through the list in alphabetical order from Alling right down to the last person in the class. And I suspect for some reason that it was deliberate, but he left out one person's name. Don't remember exactly who it was, but I remember, but I don't want to share the name. But he left out his name. And when he was finished, he asked, in fact, Vere may remember because Vere is my exact contemporary. When he was finished, he asked, did anybody not hear the name in terms of what they got back, what they passed, Oxford and Cambridge? And this young man stood up and said, me, sir. And Stanton asked, who are you? And he said, whatever his name was, and he gave his initials. So Stanton looked at the list, and he said, maths, French, chemistry, Spanish, you pass none of these. That I can recall. And there are many more anecdotes, but I shall not labor any longer with those. All I wish to do now is to extend sincere gratitude to the Combermere Old Scholars Association, my peers, former teachers and mentors, and indeed they were mentors, and I'm looking at two of them sitting right before me, Charlie Pilgrim, who was outstanding, Dorian Pyle, who, though she was not my principal at the time, was the most attractive young mentor that any schoolboy would want to behold. And apologies to Colvin. Colvin also taught me French at Combermere. There were also outstanding people. Dean Emeritus Harold Crichlow taught me just for one term. But Jack Adams and Harry Seeley, I also remember well as true mentors. They're the ones who made it clear to you that you did not require validation from anybody else or any other school, but that you were a human person who had a brain and it worked as well or better than anybody else's. That was important to us to come to this. So our teachers were not just outstanding, they were true mentors. And I also want to thank sincerely my family. I have one daughter here tonight, Camille, who was just called to the bar a couple of Fridays ago. And my elder daughter, Claire, who lives in New York. She unfortunately can't be here. And my dear wife of 35 years, Marcy. And many members of the Combermere and Norris clans sitting on the table over there. Leonard, Linda, sisters, my sister Coral, nieces, and in-laws. Lorna, who incidentally was among the first group of 6 foreign girls from St. Michael's who came to Combermere as well. So Combermere flows in the blood of the nurses, and for that, we're proud. So let me just thank all of those persons for what they have contributed, because you have made an important contribution to whatever little success I've been able to achieve. And for that, I sincerely thank you and pledge to continue keeping the Combermere flag ever upward and onward. Thank you.
Mr. Master of Ceremonies, Mr. Principal, distinguished honorees, other members of the head table, fellow Combermerians, specially invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight I have the distinct privilege of participating in this grand blue ribbon class testimonial dinner that honors the contribution of one of Barbados' brilliant musicians, a die-hard Combermerian and a friend. One major housekeeping matter or early disclaimer. My role here is not to release any skeletons that may reside in Arturo's closet for the past 30 years, or mine, but to give you an understanding of the man we affectionately refer to as Arturo. I believe that in order to truly honor this individual, it is imperative that we first look at some of the life experiences that helped to mold him at our beloved school, as seen through the eyes of some of his peers, and then culminated with his exploits as a musical genius on the international stage. My first interaction or knowledge of Arturo possibly predates 1978. That time seems so very far away, and it's even a challenge at times to recall all that transpired. Arturo, like myself, grew up just outside the suburbs of Combermere, in the greater Combermere region, rather than the greater Bridgetown, in an area commonly referred to as Grisettes. Although living in close proximity to each other, our paths never met until we were at Combermere. Those were the days when we students sang to be a pilgrim, from the songs of praise hymnal and wondered whether the pilgrim he desired in the song was in fact Mr. Charlie Pilgrim, or Mr. Victor Pilgrim, who played the piano for the morning prayers. Combermere, then and now, is a school that promotes excellence, what's daring you to be different, always urging you to reach for the stars. I guess that's the subliminal message one receives through the song, school song. Hearts are in the making, lives are in the making, up and on. Arturo clearly embraced these statements and lived them. Whilst at school under the direction of Major Dyton Leonard, Arturo was often seen sprinting on the hockey field with chaps like Peter Parris, who to this day never seems to age, David John Marie, Andrew Yearwood, Leslie Boyne, and a few others. His participation in hockey saw him represent the school competitively as captain of the second division school team. Thus, despite all we know of Tyrell, the internationally acclaimed saxophonist, he was also successful at hockey. In preparing the speech, Arturo reminded me that his interest in music was started by Cassius Shepard, a Combermere student and member of the cadet band, who explained the techniques of sight reading on clarinet. His exposure to musical excellence commenced at our grade school, with training by tutors such as Mr. Victor Pilgrim and Dr. John Fletcher, who settled for nothing less than the best. The process involved the student's successful entry into the Combermere choir, the cadet band, or Mr. James Milton's violin class. It required a flawless execution of a musical aptitude test. This process, under the guidance of Dr. John Fletcher, involved listening to and mimicking a rhythm by clapping, as well as singing a note that was played on the piano. Tyrell was probably always predestined to be a jazz artist. You may wonder why I'm saying this. Only yesterday in a conversation with David Weatherhead, a seasoned saxophonist who attended the school on the other side of the pond at Crupton Street, informed me that at the age of 13 or 14 he often chastised Tyrell for improvising rather than playing the sheet music as presented. The funny thing is that years later David sought Tyrell's assistance in developing the art of improvising. How strange life can be, huh? Throughout the years, Arturo was often seen to be surrounded by many enviable individuals, such as Chris Allman, Cassius Shepard, Julius Innes, and Anthony Ashby, to name a few. These gentlemen are all very talented musicians in their own right. I'm not sure how many of you know this, but to my knowledge, the first school pop band of our era was formed amongst Arturo, Chris, Julius, Cassius, Dirk Austin, and myself. The group was called Crystal and played many pop tunes of that period. Apart from playing at school functions, the group played at events at the St. Michael's School and a few other locations. We even washed cars at Gordon's Supermarket in order to raise funds for equipment rental for gigs, for which we earned no pay, but a belly full of hot dogs and hamburgers. The interesting thing is that at that time, Tyrell was not known for any skill set as a saxophonist, but rather he was a pretty wicked guitarist. Now that should come as a surprise to many. Arturo's quest to delve and explore the eras of jazz brought about another first of that era, and I stand to be corrected. Combermere's first jazz quartet. This group was named Sagittarius due to an overwhelming percentage of persons in the group being born in December. The group comprised of Arturo, Chris, Anthony, Ashby, and myself. The emphasis was on what we call today smooth jazz, with many pieces by Spyro Gyra, Grover Washington, and George Duke being performed at the very finest. Throughout the years, Arturo had the support of his parents. His dad was especially fond of Arturo's musical ability and could often be seen at each event in which Arturo participated. This was rare in those days, since many parents often sought to move their children away from the profession of music until it was merely a hobby. Arturo's dad, Art Tappin, now deceased, always had a love for jazz and was fully committed to his son's career choice, hoping that one day he would gain commercial success and international recognition for his music. I must say, however, that I'm more certain that his dad will be very proud of his achievements to date. It would be remiss of me not to mention Arturo's involvement in No. 3 Cadet Corps, especially after seeing the good major at the corner, right? Arturo rose to the level of corporal under the direction of Major Dyton Leonard, and at the time, Major Patrick Skeet. I do believe that based on all that has been said thus far, one can clearly identify with the foundation that was laid in Tyroll's formative years that has led to the evolution of this outstanding artist and internationally renowned musician. At the age of 18, Arturo played on stage with organist Lloyd Wilson Jr. and Arthur Pryzok. They both encouraged him to further his musical abilities by attending Berklee College of Music in Boston, a school that was attended by legends Quincy Jones and Branford Marsalis. Ironically, Arturo met the founder of the school, Mr. Lee Elliott Burke, who was vacationing in Barbados and received audition materials that eventually resulted in him being awarded the Philswood Alto Saxophone Scholarship. He soon discovered very quickly that his success hinged on his ability to constantly practice. He is quoted as saying that on his arrival to Berklee College of Music, he encountered young teenagers who were so technically proficient that it meant either give up and go home or work hard to catch up. Now, going home was not an option, and in his words, that was his greatest period of growth, since he learned in 1 year what would ordinarily have taken him 10 years to accomplish. Arturo's period at Berklee also provided him the opportunity to play at the Wally's Club, a club where the great Charlie Parker performed, and this contributed to enhancing his musical abilities. Whilst at Berklee, Arturo insisted that every 2 months or so, he would return to Barbados to perform with varying artists such as Second Avenue, Caribbean Rhythms, Signature, Eddie Jilks, and the Merrymen, and at locations such as the Shipping, Bel Air, and Warehouse at Cabins Lane. This would lead to his participation in his first International Jazz Festival at Edinburgh at the early age of 21. Now, Arturo's return to Barbados, in my opinion, saw him commence his vision of achieving recognition as a musical icon firstly through the Caribbean. Being a founding member of the Splash Band, a reggae group in Barbados, he became actively involved in writing, recording, and producing music, which made him a household name in the 1990s. During that time, Splash Band was often referred to as King of the Cabins Lane. The introduction and renewed interest in reggae jazz fusions possibly evolved out of his involvement with the Splash Band and ultimately resulted in the release of his first album, Strictly Roots Jazz. This album release led to the initial Caribbean recognition sought by Arturo. Stephen Capcore, founding member and lead guitarist of the internationally acclaimed Jamaican reggae band Third World, is quoted as saying, "I was listening to the song Breaking Up, and I found this guy was really good, and since then followed him closely." In 1995, Arturo received the distinct privilege of appearing on stage with Third World, a band he long admired. Later that year, the receipt of a personal invitation from Rita Marley saw Arturo perform as a featured guest artist at the Bob Marley 50th birthday bash in Jamaica. Sean Paul's road manager introduced him to Cedella Marley, with whom he was able to establish a distribution deal through TUFCOM. That distribution opportunity would lead to a deal with Pioneer Records in Japan that permitted him to tour Japan regularly with his own group. Always the innovator, he became the first Barbadian musician with a website that possessed the ability to advertise and sell musical CDs online. Interestingly, later that year, the internationally acclaimed Monty Alexander, one of the most prolific jazz pianists in the region, invited Arturo to play on his album. To date, Arturo has released 3 additional albums, Java, Inside Out, and Sax of the Line, each identifying with the smooth and jazz reggae abilities that he possesses. Tyroll's style and technique continued onto the international stage. One night, approximately 14 years ago, whilst he was jamming at the Waterfront Cafe, in walked Roberta Flack. He played the song, Feel Like Making Love. And when on completion, Roberta approached him and said, "What are you doing in Ben?" His reply was, "Gigging." Shortly afterwards, he performed on tour to South Africa, with Roberta, and he's worked with her ever since. But I have to pause at this point because my experience was not the same. Whilst preparing for On the Pod show, I played a similar song, but she didn't even look at me. So. Okay. Arturo's association with Roberta, in turn, led to a meeting with Buddy Williams, who had recorded with practically everyone in the business. He in turn linked Arturo with Anita Baker and Luther Vandross. The latter association led to the now famous recording of Love Won't Make You Wait, recorded at the Radio City Music Hall. Nat Avley, the then musical director for Luther Vandross, commented at Arturo's audition for Luther, "You play too soulful to be a Barbadian. You have to be from the US." Arturo's international presence continued to soar with performances observed by President Barack Obama, President Bill Clinton, and President Fidel Castro. He also performed with many soca artists, while being easily identifiable with jazz festivals locally, regionally, and internationally. Through all his achievements, Arturo has remained humble, allowing the wonderful spirit he possesses to be felt through his smooth jazz and reggae jazz styles. He has never allowed the fame associated with his field of endeavor to change who he was or how he relates to people. He is a mentor for many young musicians, a quality quite rare in today's world. Always willing to share his knowledge and craft, evident in the young, talented saxophonists that have had the wonderful benefit of his tutelage. For example, Chris Harper, Kelly Patrick, and Elan Droppen, just to name a few. We often hear the heights by great men reached and kept were not attained by sudden flight. But I honestly believe Arturo truly played the game, whilst keeping the flame burning brightly. Although I'm certain that foes may have been many, he pressed with eager feet upwards and onwards. Clearly, I dare say, a mighty undertaking by a wonderful friend, virtuous saxophonist, gifted musician, wonderful son, brother, humble human being, and true Combermere, deserving of this prestigious award. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to please stand and raise your glasses and welcome Arturo, the youngest member of the Blue Ribbon class.
I now ask Kareem and Sanola to present the award.
Good evening again, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Tappin, in recognition of your exceptional musical talent and achievement in Barbados, the region and internationally, and your dedication to the development of future musicians, we are honored to induct you into the Combermere Blue Ribbon class.
Now I would like to invite Arturo, not to blow his own trumpet, but to reply to the toast.
Good evening, everybody. This is not a position I am ever in. The most I ever have to do on a mic is announce the next song. And I literally am doing this on the fly. I'm improvising as I go along. This is the first time I've been the youngest of anything in a long time. And even though I have chosen never to dye my grey like Mr. Pilgrim, at least I'm not wearing glasses. My first day at Combermere was a very nervous day for me. My father, never going to school in Barbados, was unable to give me advice on what my first day of school would be. So I tried to figure it out by myself and ended up wearing socks and epaulets. So I had to quickly remove those. I didn't take the school bus. My father dropped me. That put me at a bit of a disadvantage also. And to be reminded by a particular student known by the name of Buddy Braffett, not the one that was in jail, that we are all equal at Combermere. After every lunchtime football match, on the way to class, after the bell rang, he delivered a swift kick to my bottom. At the time I did not understand why. I know now it was he wanted me to know. We at Combermere are all equal. So I don't think just because you're going to drop home, you're going to get a school bus. Are you special? I eventually had to put a stop to that, so I asked my cousin Jure, who happened to work out with Darcy Beckles at the time, to pay a visit to Wombi. And he had a quick lesson, which involved the scruff of the neck of his, Anyway. I hear people talking about school teachers inspiring them. I would have to say, before I went into Combermere, and on my first year, during my first year, there were two ladies who taught French. One was Auntie Grace. I can't call her Auntie Mita, Miss Nurse, whose pulchritudinousness continues to this day. And I was always inspired to do well if I loved my teachers. So I would say my first year, French was very, very, very good. Hello is what helps, not just me. A lot of people look around and wonder, how is it that Rihanna is able to remain so steadfast and humble? It's because of Combermere. And when I was in first form, there were some girls in third form and some girls in sixth form. So I think there were at least 2 years prior to my attending. So I would hope that this is the last year we don't see a young lady. I think next year we need to see a young lady on this table here. I'd just like to thank everybody, and up and on.
Ladies and gentlemen, now ask the principal, Mr. Vere Parris, to move the vote of thanks. Mr. Parris.
Master of Ceremonies, Deputy President of the Senate, Dean Emeritus Harold Crichlow, President of the Combermere School of Scholars Association, Mr. Junior Jordan, honorees, Dr. the Honorable Leonard Nurse, Mr. Anton Norris, Mr. Arturo Tappin, President of the PTA, Mr. Ronald Sobers, other members of the head table, Deputy Principal, Mrs. June Brown, past principals, Mr. Charlie Pilgrim, Mrs. Doreen Pyle, school captains, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good evening. On your behalf, I am extremely happy to extend great appreciation to a number of persons who made this evening the wonderful occasion that it has been. Latin, though considered dead, came alive tonight in the words uttered by Dean Emeritus Harold Crichlow. He has convinced and reassured us that God hears prayers in any language. Thank you, Dean. President Jordan, we greatly appreciate your heartwarming welcome. You lead the Combermere School of Scholars Association with true commitment and a passion that pervades everything you do, including tonight's welcome, and we thank you for it. To Messrs. Tony Cave, Basil Lavine, and David McCollin, for your capturing of the nuggets of the contributions of the three most outstanding honorees, and so vividly pointing us and painting for us a picture of these most worthy gentlemen. We thank you. Mr. Ronald Sobers, who represented the Board of Management and replied to the toast, we thank you this evening for sitting in for the chairman of the board. Mr. Ed Bushell, a former chairman of the Combermere Board of Management, proved himself an excellent selection as master of ceremonies and did as he promised. He guided the evening's proceedings with distinction. Thank you, Ed. To you, honorees, you distinguished this gathering this evening with class, elegance, international achievement of excellence, and even fame. And we were most happy to have had you here this evening and to honor you. Thank you so much for being here. To our most gracious school captains, Sanola and Kareem, you have distinguished your office and have exemplified the spirit of Combermere and the true student leadership. We thank you sincerely for presenting the awards and insignia. To you, the audience, family and friends, the executive of the Combermere School of Scholars Association, we thank you for making this evening's Blue Ribbon Testimonial dinner so very special. To our technical support staff, Mr. Anthony Carter, Messrs. Dominic Moyes, Tony Cave, Ian Innes, John Ryan, Mark Howard, and Major Patrick Skeet. We thank you so much for the work you've put in before today and during this evening. To the management and staff of Hilton Barbados, we thank you for providing this wonderful ambience and the fare which you served this evening, and we are most happy that we were able to gather in such a place to celebrate one of the most important events in the calendar year for Combermere School, and for all the things that all of you have done throughout this week. Combermere Week has been a very special week, and we trust that you will go home safely, having enjoyed a very important night here with us. I want to say a very special note here to Harold Jones, who is the chairman of the Combermere alumni in New York. Harold, we are happy that you are here, you along with your wife, that you are here to be able to share this moment with you. We were extremely happy to have shared that global reunion in New York. It was a wonderful and a memorable experience for all who attended. We are also commiserating with you, since we understand that your house was under 5 feet of water as a result of Hurricane Sandy, and we trust that by the time you get back, it would all have settled and cleared. So we will say a special prayer for you. All, once again, thank you so much for everything you've done in every way in which you have contributed. Thanks very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, it has been